got an agenda in front of us. It's a lengthy one today. Hopefully we can be speedy and get through everything in a timely manner. Is there any changes, additions to the agenda that anybody has? Sheriff?
Just have a quick agreement to present.
Okay. Andy, we'll put you right after the commissioners. Anything else?
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Just to clarify, the Atlas subdivision should likely reference the Atlas industrial subdivision
Okay.
for clarification.
Thank you. Any other changes? No, I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the additions that were just mentioned.
I'll second the motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioners, the first piece of business that we have is scholarship renewals. We've got one applicant, re-applicant, I guess, for this renewal scholarship, Maggie Davis from Evanston. She's currently attending school at UW.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve this scholarship renewal for Maggie Davis while she continues to attend her college at the University of Wyoming.
I'll second the motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve Maggie Davis as the recipient of this renewal scholarship. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next matter of business is the lease agreement that we have before us with between Uinta County and BDCI. BDCI is Vector Disease Control. They are folks that have been handling mosquito abatement for the last few years. This is a lease agreement for the building that is for us. We do not have an amount on this. We will need to set that as part of this agreement discussion. Any questions on this? Loretta's coming up. She has some
I don't
comments.
necessarily have any questions. For the record, Loretta Callis, Uinta County Attorney. I just wanted to let you guys know that this is an exact duplicate, essentially, of the BDCI contract that we've had previously. As Chairman Anderson has noted, I did intentionally leave blank the amount of the lease amount in anticipation that you may want to review that amount. I'm sure that Ms. Hutchinson has what the current amount was. My recollection is $1,400 and change. And then there is also a blank provision as to when you execute the contract for it's on page 2 at the top as to when an actual contract for integrated mosquito control services was executed. That's related to grant funding to a certain extent as well as other matters. And my understanding from speaking to Clerk Hutchinson was that that had not been executed yet. So if that's today that we sign that, we want today's date.
Okay.
And then
that has been executed at this point, so we do have that due on there.
And then the governmental immunity clause in paragraph 5 has been updated for current language that we've been using in our contracts.
Perfect.
So, as just you know, the prior contract is good through June 30th. So they have been performing their duties as structured under the prior contract.
Thank you.
There was one additional provision that Loretta included for us, which was to assign the property taxes to the tenant.
Sorry, thank you for reminding me that. Yes, I did add, and that is in paragraph P on page 4 for subsection P. Is to require them to be waived for any taxes associated. So that would be ad valorem and real property tax.
Great.
The question I have is on item number 4, J. It talks about the mail carry liability insurance
They generally are required to report that clerk every year, and my understanding is this is provided for that year. I can't guarantee that, but that's usually with our contractors. They provide information to the clerk related to that. I don't know if she keeps a copy or if she just sees it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Is there any
Director.
other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
So do we have,
Well, the prior agreement was $1,400. $1,430.
is that what we're
And that I would entertain a motion on that. I don't know if we've had any discussions with VDCI that amount would change, so.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this contract for 1430.
I would ask that they increase their price to us as a county for mosquito treatment by 2 or 3%. I would suggest that we raise their rent by that same percentage that they raise the cost of their services.
Okay, so let's handle the first motion that we have on the table. So we've got a motion. Is there a second to leave the amount to $1430? I would make that motion. Leave it as it is. They do a good job for us, and I think if we treat them right in the lease, that they will continue getting the best rate that we can get on the mosquito abatement. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the VDCI lease at $1430. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Another matter of business we have before us is Mountain View Lions Club malt beverage permit request. Is anybody here to speak on that behalf? Come on up.
I'm actually, we're just looking to set up in front court directly for Hollywood. The 250th celebration. Mostly for Hollywood.
Can you do me a favor? Can you turn that mic on? I don't turn that on.
Is there a better?
There it is. That's all right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any questions for Ashley Cole on this?
So this permit is just for the 1 day and
Yes,
the run?
just for the one day, we'll see the application for,
Okay. All right, so this is just like, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve this, malt beverage permit for the, Mountain View Lions Club.
Second motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve this malt beverage permit as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Eric, you are up. Or Sheriff, sorry. Better your hand right.
Good afternoon, Andy Kaufman, County Sheriff. I'm gonna throw one more at you guys today. The first one is an agreement with Edema. They are a maintenance program for our fingerprint machines. We have 2 digital ones at the Sheriff's Office. It's a yearly agreement for $3,000. Guys need approval so we can get that signed and sent off.
And is this just a renewal of the current agreement?
So it's when we bought the fingerprint machine, it came with a few years of coverage, and that coverage is lapsed, or ran out, and so it's a new contract for us. That I think it's going to be every 2 years. But I'll find out for sure. They deal with Lieutenant Mark jail. So,
This is just for renewal.
it's a new agreement.
Contract,
Yeah.
service contract. Has the contract been reviewed by?
It has.
Okay.
recommendation that she did, recommended to us, they did that.
And can you tell me the amount again?
$3,808.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, please, that this contract for $3,000
I'll second that motion for the ADMA machine and $3,808.
Got a motion and a second to approve this contract as presented by our sheriff. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then, second thing is, County Road 229, it's the start of the Fort Bridger American Legion Parade this year. We're Bridge and ourselves we're requesting a road closure on behalf of the American Legion just for half of County Road 229. It would be the other half of it that spits out onto the business and day to safely line up the parade and start the parade. I guess in 7:30 until just after the parade starts. So it's right 7:30 to 11.
So, Sheriff, the parade started at 229 and then go down that state highway and then make the, right after the Catholic Church, make the right and continue around that circle. Is that the proposed route?
I believe it's ending at the fort this year.
Oh, okay. So that's just after the fort versus. So, do we need, I know it's a state highway, but do we need permission to give grant? Do we need to give permission granted to close that section of the?
So American Legion takes care of all that. They sent their paperwork out to the state already to get approval for that. So we just need that portion of the county road to get people lined up and get the parade.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the closure of the south end of 229 for everyone line up parade, loads up and start on the parade road.
Second motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve this request of closure for County Road 229 parade. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, now Eric.
Commissioners, Dear Hutchinson, the County Sheriff's Office Drug Court Program. For you today, you should have a copy of the agreement with the state of Wyoming. This is similar to what we've had in past years, except we find that it's a lot longer than previous years. I don't want to get in trouble with every time. We're no longer sued by the Department of Health, now we're sued by the Supreme Court, so I figured turning from
Sorry.
misbehaving.
Are you being to attorney?
I may to attorneys. So it is the same as far as what the services are going to require of us. There are some things that are changing, so you know, in the state. We do have to become, under the court supervision program, we do have to be reviewed, what they call peer review. And we anticipate that to happen this fall as part of the terms of the contract. And then sometime in 2027, we expect to have to do what they call a court certification to take place, and that will have to be redone every time a new coordinator for the judge is appointed. And so they delayed our certification with Judge Brewer retiring until after his replacement was appointed, and we'll go from there. The amounts are very similar to previous years. It is just shy of $10,000 less than we have received in past years, as budgetary cuts. Positions. Any questions on that?
Any questions?
Aaron, I thought I read in there somewhere that there's a certain number of plants that you have to serve through another period of time. I can't seem to find it right now.
Yes, so we're budgeted this year for 20 clients. 20
I
clients.
read that somewhere, I couldn't remember.
Yes, so we can serve
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this contract. Commission, Tracy Court for the contract.
I'll second the motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve this contract agreement between Wyoming Judicial Branch and Uinta County for the use of supervised treatment program. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Someone with me here today is also Jared Bingham. Director for the Department of Agriculture. Before you have a second contract for the services provider for us as a treatment provider. The contract you have before you had to change with it. We were able to have county attorney look at it, and there were some revisions we didn't make in the wording of it. I do have the correct copy for me if I may approach and give you the correct.
Please. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Aaron, do you want to just go through what has changed from one that we maybe had in our packets?
Actually, I put right up here just a moment because the wording changed. There were some that I believe that do with the funding, and in case something changed.
Okay.
So in relation to the contract, I'm gonna stand over here. Paragraph 4, availability of funds. There is a provision related to the contract being available so long as the county can pay. So there is a provision in the contract from the Supreme Court to the drug court that mandates the ability of the Supreme Court to pay funding and that can terminate the program. In addition to that, though, as you are all aware, I believe that we have the availability for the opioid funds and the settlements and the pharmaceutical companies to operate the drug court if, in fact, our funding falls short of the state. But that condition then is just to ensure that if for some reason the county does not have availability of funds, we are obligated to pay that point to the contract, but then we provide notice to the provider and then we can end the contract at that time. The other provision, as we've discussed in various matters, is that there is a decision in the district court in Campbell County that determines some contractual issues with sovereign immunity. So in paragraph 9, we did update the language to try to clarify that we are trying to make it as clear as possible that we are not waiving our governmental immunity when we enter into this contract, and that the confines of this contract are the limits to our liability.
Thank you. Any other questions on the contract?
Aaron, this is the same time frame as the previous contract that we just approved,
Yes.
July through June.
Yes, we're up through July 1st through June 30th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve this contract to provide services.
Second motion.
The motion is second to approve this contract to provide services between Uinta County and Agriculture Behavioral Health. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you both.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Move on to the maintenance department. Jeff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeff Bryant, County Maintenance. I have two items here for you today. One is the basically the renewal of the task order with J&B Services for they're assisting us in various engineering issues with the Worker Airport, helping keep our paperwork with the FAA and the FAA on straight. And that is for the renewal of the current amount of $10,000 limit during that period.
Any questions on this first matter of business, the task order?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve this task order
motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve task order 826-0038-4001. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
The second item I have for you is also with JUD, and it is a modification to an existing agreement to provide the cultural survey that the BLM is requiring for the land that's within the airport. This adds the additional cultural resource on the route of County Road 223 around the airport.
Looks like this amendment increases no more than $9,500.
$9,500 increase to cover the addition.
Any other questions on the task order amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept this task order. On the airport, the county.
I'll second that motion.
A motion and a second to approve this task order amendment for the cultural resource study on this piece. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Eric Queen, Chief Administrative Officer for the Uinta County Fire and Ambulance. I'm before you today to consider a resolution to place a question. I'm going to stand over here too. Question on the ballot for the 6 penny tax in the amount of $13 million. This question for emergency vehicles and equipment. This question would go on the November general ballot. To put to the voters the opportunity to replace our aging equipment. I bring this to you for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the age of our equipment now, the lack of revenue to be able to replace that equipment, and generally the consensus from the special election last year that people were generally supportive of the replacement of emergency vehicles and equipment. But they were not supportive of the other items that were on the special election ballot. So we are bringing this back this year as its own question. Obviously, that requires the approval of the municipalities and the county. So far, the town of Bear River has signed on to the resolution. The town of Lyman did last night. I bring this before you today. And then the city of Evanston will consider it at their meeting tonight at 5:30. The town of Mountain View will consider it tonight at their meeting at 7 o'clock. All indications are the support from Bear River and Lyman has been unanimous. Again, I'm not asking you to spend money, I'm just asking you to let the voters decide. And that's what we're after here. And so asking for your signature on this resolution, and then I'll be asking the city of Evanston and Mountain View later on tonight. I did provide some informational material to the public as they came in today to kind of outline what I've talked to you about over the last couple of months, the list of projects that we are attempting to accomplish to benefit the entire county in terms of emergency services and obviously health detector volunteers. So with that, I'll stand for any questions as you guys consider this resolution.
Eric, when you came and talked to us, kind of gave us a little heads up that this might be coming. I voiced some concern with this, and I still have some concern with my opinion in the 6 penny. I guess the procedures with the 6 penny. I do like that every voter gets a say. I think there's nothing more powerful than that in that process. I do, however, believe that as government institutions and in relations regarding that, I feel like we are responsible for giving the public an accurate and a conservative need based to that question. And I worry of last year, the fire and EMS was looking for $3 million. Now we're looking for 13. And we have a lot of members of the public here can you tell us why the difference in a year
That's a great,
for that?
yeah, that's a great question. Last year when they did the special election, the ask for fire and EMS was kind of last second addition to their project for the aquatic center. And so it was something that was quick and put together. That would be one fire truck and one ambulance for each side of the county. At the last minute, that's what we were able to throw on the table. Since we were able to take a step back and do a comprehensive plan of what we anticipate needing over the next 20 years, that list came up to $60 million. Those projects are such as building a new ambulance station at the Erie Crossroads, to centralize the ambulance station for ambulance services in the Bridge Valley, a new fire station for Evanston, and a multitude of other projects. Well, going from $3 million to $60 million is a ginormous task. So what we did, we pared that from 60 down to 13 million, what we deem as our essential needs right now. And that will benefit every area of the county. It's not just one fire truck for the Bridge Valley, it's one for each town over here, and it's one for Evanston and Bear River, instead of needing to determine that the fire truck for the Bridge Valley is going to be placed in Lyman, not Mountain View, or vice versa. It just gave us we've had more time to think about what our needs are. And we anticipate that this tax will only last for about 2 years before we were able to collect the 13 million. And that would then roll off and go back down to the 5%. So this is not a long-term tax. It's about a 2-year tax that could be paid off quicker. And then another thing that is nice about this is the sales tax is not all paid by citizens of Uinta County. It's paid by people that travel through here. And we provide a lot of services to people out on I-80 that travel through Uinta County. So to me, it's appropriate that those travelers that spend money here help shoulder the burden on our emergency vehicle replacement that we're not otherwise able to do. I know everybody's property taxes have gone up, but the problem here with our revenue in Uinta County is oil and gas, and the mineral revenue has gone down so much that we are down, inflation factored in 68% of revenue for the fire district over the last 15 years. And that's significant. We don't have the money to do capital replacement. And if we were to try to save 13 million, it would take us 70 years to do so. But the voters need to decide what level of emergency equipment they want to have in the county, and this gives them the opportunity to say what that level is.
Any other questions for Eric on this?
Just a comment. So my concern as well is you go from 3 million to 13 million. Obviously, there's more apparatuses and equipment that's been added to this. I'm certainly in favor and know the need of improving our radio towers so that we have good communication throughout the whole county. I know it's important for the volunteers to have the correct equipment, PPEs and tanks and other things of that nature for their own safety. Those in my mind are very critical. And I talk to citizens and I say, why do we need this much? And I talk to the volunteer firefighters and they in turn say, we need it because what we have is old. So, and somewhat outdated. So, I just have some concerns as this goes to the voters. Obviously, they have the chance to approve or disapprove, vote against it or vote for it. I'm just really concerned on the amount. I do know that the sales tax, the penny tax, does accumulate quite a bit over a short period of time. So, just some concerns that I have, and those are just kind of some comments that I have as far as this particular question on
I appreciate that. And one point that I'd like to make, we have 101 volunteers in the county, fire and EMS combined, that save, the taxpayers here in Uinta County millions of dollars. If we were to have to pay those in full-time wages, benefits, and salaries, we would be spending a lot of money. And so we need to make sure that those volunteers, keep those volunteers volunteering. And if we're not able to provide them with proper equipment and vehicles in which to do their job safely, we're gonna have a hard time finding people that want to volunteer to put their lives on the line. And so I also want to just make a public statement that our volunteers save the county and the taxpayer millions and millions of dollars every year for the volunteer service that they provide. And we need those volunteers to keep volunteering, so we need to provide them with the right equipment and protection to do so. That's why I think this is very important. Because the volunteers across the country is going down, but 76% of the nation's fire service is volunteer, which saves the taxpayers across the country $46 billion a year. And so we want to be able to keep that happening here in Uinta County and provide them a safe way to do it.
Couple more things real quick, Eric. Not all municipalities have voted on this, is that correct?
So we have Mountain View and Evanston are still left to do that tonight. I have met with both councils. Lyman and Bear River have passed it unanimously. So by law, all I need really is 3 out of the 5. So your approval of this resolution, what's that?
50%, we have 4 municipalities.
So 2 municipalities. So in essence, 2 municipalities have already passed this, so we have met that threshold. Now, I would like to have all 4 municipalities in the county sign on to it because you're all parties to the Joint Powers Board and have their interest in the Joint Powers Board succeeding to provide fire EMS in the County. But I met with Evanston and Mountain View and have received good feedback from them. Mountain View, when I met with them, were unanimous in their support for me to bring it back to them, which I'm doing tonight. And I anticipate that to be full support. And I do anticipate that Evanston will support it as well tonight. They asked good questions last week when I met with them. And again, everybody understanding that we balance fire and EMS services. We fully were able to provide what we've been able to provide based on our oil and gas mineral revenue over the years. And unfortunately, that has taken such a hit that we can exist operationally, we just do not have the money for capital replacement items until we have a stronger tax base here in Uinta County. And I know people are saying, well, my property taxes have gone up, but the real money that we were providing services with came from the oil and gas industry, and that has not gone up here in Uinta County, it's gone down.
One final question, actually for Amanda. What is the deadline? Would we have the ability to wait to see if the other 2 municipalities approve and make our approval next meeting to meet the deadline? And the second follow-up question, just so members of the public would know, what is the implication? What does this make our ballot look like? Because it's already a pretty full ballot.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, July 16th, I believe, is the deadline for the question to be in its final form through a resolution into my office so that it can be included in the general election. I've mentioned before, I have a concern that we are going to have a 19-inch ballot and also that we will exceed the 19 inches and have to go to a 2-page ballot, which I said before, I think is a voter confusion issue. There's certainly a cost, but I think voter confusion is the greater concern because I'm not aware of us ever having a 2-page ballot before. Certainly other jurisdictions do on a regular basis, so I'm sure we'd figure it out. And then the voters would figure it out. We would do our best to give really good instruction at the polling places, but that is a reality that I think we could fill up a 19-inch ballot potentially go to 2 pages, which if we do, I'll probably go back to 17 inches and not to 19 inches.
Okay. Any other questions on this? If not, I will entertain a motion to this request.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we pass this resolution with 16 excellent voters decide whether they want to do it or not.
I'll second that motion, but also, if it was just the county, I don't know that I would approve the resolution, but allowing the voters to have a chance to vote on and have them make that decision, I think maybe we're holding things back if we don't allow
and a second to approve joint resolution 2026-15. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Sarah Lee?
Commissioners, Sarah Ross with Uinta County Bridge. I've been working on an application for Magnesium Supply for the 2027 summer. I'm applying for 83.7 miles worth. That's $376,315. Part of the application, I need a couple of documents signed. The first one is the resolution. It's that we have to start to participate and meet the federal funding criteria, along with the 20% match, which would be $75,263. This grant has to be paid 100% by the county, and then we're reimbursed at 8%. And it also designates me as the project administrator.
Sir, can you, I didn't catch that first piece. How many miles worth did you say this is?
83.7 miles.
83. Okay.
So would this be two different motions?
Yes, yes. The first one is the resolution.
Okay.
Just a comment, well, maybe you have a more correct answer to that, Sandy. How many miles of county road do we have as a total? You have any idea? Unpaved, dirt roads, but unpaved.
We have total roads, county roads is 355.
355. Any idea how much, portion of that is unpaved that we need to put the CMAC on?
So there, we don't, there's asphalt, there's gravel, there's some unimproved miles. We have about 282 miles of gravel road, and out of that, we have 206 miles of it. So 83.7 of the 206 would fall under the CMAC grant, with the other 122 falling under our county road monies.
Which would be out of our county coffers.
Yeah, our county road funds.
I think that's interesting to know. There's 282 county miles, and in fact, 206 of that. Only this grant only covers 83.7, which is not even half.
So, you have to qualify, there's criteria to qualify for this grant.
Sure.
So it's more your industrial roads, like leading up to National Road, Silver Eagle.
Some of that might be your
So
trouble.
there's criteria to fall under this grant, so it can't just be any county.
Sure. I just want the citizens to know that we receive a grant that covers 83 miles, and yet we have 206 miles that we manage. So, they talk about reduction in property tax. Well, that property tax reduction could reduce the amount of roads that we can make.
Correct.
So, having said that, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the CMAC resolution 26-16.
Second motion.
Got a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2616 for the CMAC. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, the second document is just the Title VI coordinator for this project. That's basically put me over the Title VI of it to ensure that we follow all our federal guidelines and ensure that we put these documentations in any bid documents that go out, so we follow the criteria for that.
Just a comment there again from the public. This is put together in some other counties by engineers, and so we appreciate Sarah Lee and her diligence and fortitude in making sure that we're doing things correctly, and appreciate all your efforts. So, having said that, I'll make a motion to approve Sarah Lee as the designated coordinator
believe we can probably take care of this form basin. So what the request is we have a jail services, which I believe is the contractor locally here in Lyman, is looking for open credit terms in the landfill to just be able to kind of charge to the account as they need. Is there any comments or questions on that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve JL services for the credit. Based on
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve credit allocation for jail services for account landfill. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Josh?
Commissioners, Josh Raskin, Emergency Management. I have two grants to renew. They're both SHSP grants, which is the State of Land Security Grant. They had some leftover money, and so I applied for a couple of things. First thing is we sent the deputy and his dog down for some training, canine training, and the amount was $2,175. So this will just be a reimbursement of that training.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Homeland Security Grant in reference to reimbursement for canine training and the officer for $2,175.
second motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve this trainer reimbursement through this grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
All right, the second one is purchase 10 ribbon dispensers. We had that accident here in Evanston earlier this spring. That was one of the issues that got brought up, was being able to mark vehicles. So we came up with the idea to get these ribbon dispensers so that both fire department will get them and sheriff's office, like mark vehicles, more people if we need to, so that responding agencies don't have to pay for each checked. And that is for $1,480 for 10 dispensers.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept this. For the ribbons.
I'll second that with a comment. Great idea. I think it can help us become more efficient in the event of some kind of major accident, rather than checking the same vehicles for individuals over and over. So help us be able to provide aid as quickly as we can to those that need that aid. So having said that, I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve this grant for the DMS triage ribbon dispensers. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Becky. Amendment.
Commissioners, I have a budget resolution before you. It's a budget amendment to our current fiscal year 26 budget. It's a pretty simple one. We had an $800 donation for the sheriff's office. I believe it was for the badges. I don't know if this is a copy. Oh, there it is. It was badges, right? Okay, so we had a donation for that, so it recognizes that donation. And then we had 2 new grants for responsible gambling behavior that we accepted throughout the year, so it's just acknowledging those. Before you make an approval, just be aware, I think I will have one more budget amendment to come for this fiscal year, which I will address on our special meeting on June 30th to do our final bill pay. So I will advertise to do those 2 items for sure, just because there's always some good at the end of this week. So if you would consider this one today, I would be grateful.
Any questions for public comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept this resolution for the budget number 2/6-4.
17.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve resolution 26-17. Question amendment 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Kent, you're up. You seem to always bring the crowds.
Okay, you got it. Commissioners, Bill Williams, representing the planning office. I have 2 items for you today, or 3, I guess. The first one, and I guess maybe my purpose in saying it that way is to clarify that we've got 2 different efforts. What I'm going to present to you right now is simply a subdivision and map amendment. Most of the folks that are here are interested in the conditional use permit that will follow this effort. Should you approve it, I guess. But what we're talking about here is the subdivision only. So when we get to the public comment portion of the public hearing portion of it, that will be relative to the subdivision and map amendment only. Then we'll move forward. But this is that. This is a request on behalf of Prometheus Wyoming LLC. They would like to subdivide most of section 13 of Township 15, North Range 119 West. This is in the area of the old Eagle Rock ski area, for those that are familiar with it. Obviously, that's agricultural land. We zone that as agricultural resource development, ARD, we refer to it in our office. And this proposal would change that from an agricultural resource development zoning to an industrial zoning. And the applicant would like to create an industrial park of that area to help them or aid them in the navigation of the industrial siting processes of the state. The main purpose relative to going down the road currently would be a data center campus that we will address later on. But this effort would create an industrial park or an industrial zone area that could be used for any industrial use. Again, as I mentioned, agricultural resource development is our current zoning. The proposal would change that to industrial, and of course, business industrial would be our subdivision type. Access to the property is County Road 180. We're talking about one lot, and it's fairly large, 497 acres, give or take. We did not know that exact number of acres at our planning and zoning level, but we've clarified that a little bit more. The water source for the industrial park would be by private wells. And the sewer service would be by a private small wastewater system. With this being an industrial park and an industrial use, any septic system on this proposed subdivision would be a DEQ approved direct. That would be outside the scope of what we permit in our office through our regulated authority. So that permit would come from the DEQ directed for any septic system in the area. There are water rights there are water rights, and the flood zone does not impact the property. Typically on our subdivisions, you might know that we receive or ask for and receive a report from the Uinta County Conservation District. That application was sent to them. They declined to report on this, given the size and scope of this particular subdivision. Typically, it's a smaller areas that they evaluate and provide a report on, and so in that case, they have declined report on this particular subdivision, which is within their purview. We did go through a point permit system, as we do with all of our subdivisions. It received 25 positive points, 12 negative, and it was brought before our Planning and Zoning Commission on May 27th. It was a well-attended hearing. Many questions, good questions were asked and answered. And overall, I think that meeting was a success. Informationally, I think most people were able to express or ask their questions and express their concerns. I will say that it was well attended, it was condescending and only, and so I won't say that everybody got their questions answered, because I just don't know if the accommodations were such that it was just there's a lot of people there. We were glad to see that. So I do know that there's one lady who asked a question after the close of the public hearing at the end of the thing, and I went out to, I told her that we would wait, try to get her questions answered. I went out to find her after the meeting, and I could not find her. So there was, I know at least one that didn't get a question answered, but it was well attended, and it was very productive from my perspective. Again, this would just create a large industrial lot. We have not considered an industrial subdivision of this scope or this size in my experience in the planning office, but it doesn't mean we can't. It need to be well, make you aware that this is a large one lot subdivision. It's very remote. Access is again by County Road 180 off of I-80. It's kind of one of those things that you kind of need to go know where you're going to, or you might not find it. But so it's a fairly remote location. But with that, Mr. Chairman, with that brief introduction, I do need to hold a public hearing on this particular issue. This is a subdivision and a map amendment as well. And again, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the conditional use permit yet. We're talking about the subdivision itself and the map amendment. And so, with your permission, I will open that public hearing and invite anyone wishing to speak. If we have the applicant, your representative, come up first, and then we can open it up to the public. With your permission.
That's great, thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I won't go into the long introduction that I've used with the planning and zoning commissioners, because I think you all know me after having worked with you for about almost 6 years now on another site which has an active conditional use permit on another part of the ranch. So, Abby, you can go to the next slide. We can get right into it. This is a map of where the project is located. You can see that the closest neighbors in sight, which looks like the postage down there, is the Evanston Silver Eagle Refinery. We will use the same access road as the refinery, and so that's the folks who will be sharing access point with us. Next slide. We've already seen the lots, so I think we can skip this one. This is a rendering of what the site will look like from Beta Hall 1. It may not be as tall as it is rendered here, so we may adjust the size of the building based on our specific tenant request. We are looking at, with this specific tenant, we have signed a term sheet with them. We have also entered into a cost reimbursement agreement, which is backed by our investment bank and Morgan Stanley, and we're proceeding along the lines of finalizing a tenant agreement. Of course, they don't want to sign on the dotted line until they feel like the project has been de-risked, which is why we're here today. So we're looking at 1.25 gigawatts of initial campus capacity, slightly less than the 506 acres here. Sure. I think that's all I have to say about the subdivision, other than this is the intended purpose.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding the subdivision or map amendment?
What did you say again?
If someone would like to have a comment regarding the subdivision or the map.
Not the CUP.
Not the CUP, this is the subdivision map amendment. If that's the case, we can close this public hearing. Commissioners, I will say that for your information, this particular effort, both the map amendment and subdivision, have been advertised appropriately. It's directed by our land use planning documents, as well as landowners within certain proximity has received a letter from our office advising of this hearing. And with that, we close the public hearing and let you have your discussion. You have a resolution relative to the map amendment and a resolution relative to the subdivision.
Questions on this subdivision? On that one?
I don't have any questions. Do they need to be two separate, terms?
Yes.
Yes, please.
First, please.
Yes, the map amendment first, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the, application number map amendment 26-01, changing the, noted properties, part of section 13, from agriculture to industrial land use.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve this map amendment. All in favor? Aye.
Clerk, will now do resolution 2618.
18.
Any questions or comments on subdivision? Or entertain a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion on subdivision 26. To approve it.
Is that a second?
I'll second
A motion and a second to approve the Atlas subdivision with resolution 2619. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Commissioners, my next issue for you to consider is a conditional use permit on behalf of Prometheus C U P, also LLC. They seek a conditional use permit to construct and operate in Dennis data center and associated infrastructure in an industrial land use district. This is relative to the property that you just considered, the subdivision on located section 13 of Township 15, North Area 119 West. Again, this is a new proposal for us. We did have a similar proposal 4 or 5 years ago that was ultimately approved. Same applicant, by the way. And since that time, the applicant has chosen to reconsider the location, and that is what brings us back here today. Again, this is in the area, the old Eagle Rock ski area. County Road 180 will be providing the access. You do have a copy of the written consent from the landowner, which is Uinta County. Those have I think I got my staff reading mixed up. But at any rate, this would allow for the construction of a data center and some relative infrastructure for the data center itself. Mr. Thornock is here. He's the applicant in the area or in the effort. I don't wish to speak for him at all, but I do also know relative to our staff meeting earlier that our county attorney's office has helped us greatly with regard to the wording and the conditional use permit and the conditions of it, as you are aware. And so with that in mind, your permission, Mr. Chairman, I will turn the public hearing portion of this over to our county attorney and let her handle that with your permission.
That's great.
Commissioners, it is somewhat unusual for me to summarize some issues that have come up in our discussions and or legal discussions. However, I think it's prudent in this circumstance to provide some information. As the Commission is well aware, historically in 2021, Prometheus Hyperscale and Mr. Thornock did approach the Planning and Zoning Commission for Uinta County and received a conditional use permit to facilitate placement of a data center in 2021. That was in conformance with our public hearing requirements, and it did pass unanimously through our Planning and Zoning in 2021. In addition to that came before this board. It was actually this exact board, because in 2021 it would have been the 3 commissioners sitting, and it was unanimously passed then, without any objection to my understanding or recollection. Since 2021, Mr. Thornock and Prometheus have periodically updated and advised this council, this commission, related to progress and discussions related to the matter. And those meetings that occurred were in public meetings. They were in your regular work sessions, and they were noticed on our agendas. There are no non-disclosure agreements that have been entered by any party. There have been no confidential discussions that have occurred in relation to this proceeding. There is no financial benefit being promised to the county, and there are no tax rebates, cuts, or other exemptions that are proposed in relation to this conditional use permit. There is a specific exemption pursuant to the industrial siting for non-mineral processing facilities in existing industrial parks that are recognized by local government agencies. And in facilitating this, you are utilizing our standard practice to facilitate the creation of the industrial park, and now are considering this conditional use permit. I note these things for a number of reasons, but particularly in relation to an individual's property rights. You have property rights that are provided to each citizen of the United States of America pursuant to Article 1, Section 6 of the Wyoming Constitution for our Wyoming residents, and under the 5th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You have a due process right to own your own real property, and the government can only infringe or impede your rights on your property under due process, and in that case, under circumstances for eminent domain. And so, in consideration of these processes and procedures, it is important that this board not act arbitrarily or capriciously in relation to those proceedings, and I'm going to summarize some of those concerns. But ultimately, the Thornock family and their corporation generally has the right to do what they want with their property. And I think that that is not only in our Constitution, it is the Wyoming way. I will note for everyone that it has been clearly and unequivocally provided that it's the intention of this applicant through the application process to utilize power that is off-grid. That means it will not tie into the Rocky Mountain power system. However, I think it is important for the citizens of Uinta County and the state of Wyoming to note unequivocally that your electric bills will be going up. There is a provision every year that Rocky Mountain Power approaches the Public Service Commission to address rates. Those rates are set by the Public Service Commission and affect 2 separate issues. One is the cost of fuel. What does it actually cost them to cut the power down the line? And the other is for general maintenance of infrastructure expansion and other issues. The Public Service Commission has already received, not dependent upon any data center, but has already received from the Rocky Mountain Power requests that they first know that there has been lower costs than anticipated for fuel. So they anticipate about a $4 rebate per customer per $100 to rebate customers for that amount. And they have notified the Public Service Commission of that fact. In addition to that, because of the lower cost of fuel, they have requested a 6% reduction in a portion of their rates for the cost of fuel. They have, however, noted that they intend or are requesting upgrades in the amount of $70.5 million for infrastructure, insurance, and grid upgrades. And speaking to Ron Wild, he noted that, of course, inflation is affecting everyone. And so that increase will effectively provide 8.8% to each and every user on the Rocky Mountain Power System, which, so for you all to know, independent of these proceedings, we are anticipating before the end of the year an increase to our power bills of 2.8%. The Public Service Commission has noted that they impose tariffs upon industrial users to ensure that those companies do not pass those expenses onto customers. That's whether you are building a house and you're extending your power line to your own property or industrial users. That is their position So, as for the rates, just with the lower rates of fuel, that was because of the use of fuel. Supply and demand generally provides that the larger use, whether it's for electricity or for the things that create electricity, the more that goes down the line, the lower the cost is. Local, state, and federal regulations control environmental protection. Our government at the county, state, and national levels have safeguards in place to make sure that the way people choose to use their property doesn't cause unreasonable harm to those who surround them. In Wyoming, when someone chooses to use their property to start a business, such as a lawn care business, a doctor's office, or even a data center, they have permits that they must request through state and federal governments to ensure that there is compliance. And further, in these proceedings, there is our land use plan. Use of individual property cannot be arbitrarily or capriciously restricted by any government agency, including this board. We must follow established procedures as by our land use plan and provide permits consistently with each applicant. For the project that the Thornox and Prometheus hyperscale are proposing, there were two avenues that were available. One was the Industrial Siting Commission, which would have negated any ability for local comment directly to the board making the determination. Rather, they determined to go not once but twice through a conditional use permit that facilitated 4 separate hearings for the people to conduct over a 5-year period. Over the last few weeks, you have been tasked my office and yourselves with doing extensive research and discussion of many things, and of course have heard emails and letters from different constituents. We will certainly have this meeting commence, and Mr. Thornock will present to you the project for the conditional use permit, and I will open this meeting to public comment. Once everyone has had the opportunity to speak, you will have a chance to ask any questions directly of myself, Mr. Thornock, or his representatives. And it should be clear, you can deny, you can approve, or you can table this concern. Once the conditions are approved, however, you have the ability to put in certain conditional use permit conditions, and we have discussed those both formally and informally through work session and otherwise, and I anticipate that you all will have me put those on the record at some point. Later down the road, if for some reason the company or their tenant does not comply with the conditions that we provide, there are actions that we can take to facilitate compliance related to those issues. I did want to further note that one thing that is maybe not apparent that I know you all are aware of is the confidential financial records to confirm financial ability have been recorded with the Planning and Zoning Department. However, those are not subject to public disclosure as a matter of law. What is important to remember for each of you and each citizen is under the constitutions of the state of Wyoming and the United States, you don't have the power to facilitate action that is outside of your land use plan. You cannot deny or approve a plan simply by public support or complaint thereof. And in fact, there is a case all the way back from 1982 that unless public opinion and sentiment is part of your land use plan, that is not a consideration that you're lawfully allowed to consider. That doesn't mean that you are not elected by your constituents. I am not asking you to ignore their voices. But in considering an arbitrary and capricious action, you must follow your land use plan. At this time, I would also note that depending upon your action, if there is an approval, there will be an action I will request of this board. I presume that this time you would like Mr. Thornock to come forward and then have me ask about which conditions you would like to go over.
Yeah, let's go through the public hearing first.
Howdy, if you would, thank you. Already on the page. So back to what we are planning to do with this industrial park. We will be building buildings that cover 8 to 9 football fields in size. And I would also note that our construction is going to be phased. In other words, the deployment numbers that I'm about to show you are not going to all show up at once. We will be doing ground preparation with a limited number of contractors, and then at some point in the future, we will ramp up according to our construction schedule. This is the preliminary layout as our engineers have envisioned. We may have to move this around due to rights-of-way easements that exist along the property already, and based on COP analysis that our engineers do. Next slide. One of the things that most people are concerned about with data centers is water usage. This is a huge problem with cloud data centers. When I came to the commission 5 years ago, I expressed the desire, based on our background as the Vinci family, that we were going to use closed-loop systems. Those systems were, I wouldn't say experimental, but fairly new at that time. Since then, closed-loop systems have become the standard for AI data centers, and our tenant is one of the leading data labs, and we'll be using the closed-loop system. So we'll be using water for domestic uses only. We will not use any county water. There will be no discharge. We will not be using any of the family's water rights that apply to other branchland that we have on the Bear River. None of that will be involved in this project. This is a membrane closed loop cooling system. It looks very much like the radiator car. You can see there are 2 regulators off the left, and then there's a little box that is just out of that. The third box, which is short, which doesn't have any fans in it, is a compressor chiller. So kind of think of that as the AC compressor in your car. So it also has closed loop systems that circulate coolant. The heat is then pulled out of the server room, which is the building that's cut away on the right. There's a lot of height involved with these data centers because, again, they don't use air cooling, which means they also don't consume water cooling or anything that's in house. Next slide. Folks have questions around E25. What is that? That is a 25% mixture that is loaded into the cooling system. When the building is constructed, it gets changed out about every 6 years. It is considered by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration as generally regarded as safe. It is approved for direct addition into your food. It is used in drugs and cosmetics, and it has no carcinogenic properties, and it's in a lot of stuff that you either touch or consume on a daily basis, like this nice cake that we have here. Next slide. County Attorney already mentioned our power strategy. It is on-site, and it is off the power grid. As such, we will have no impact on residential electricity rates because we're not connected to the grid. Everything is on-site. The upside from my perspective is that instead of sending natural gas down the pipe for being consumed in Utah, Nevada, or California to create economic activity, that economic value will stay right here. Next slide. We've also taken great care to minimize noise, light, and traffic impact. One of the conditions that has been agreed for this conditional use permit is that we use dark sky protocol, which is an international protocol, and to maintain dark sky in rural areas. We also have noise mitigation plans in place. We've initiated discussions with a firm that specializes in noise containment The big thing that this project does is it creates jobs. You can see that there are 3,800 approximate temporary construction jobs involved with the project. Again, those will not all start on day one. It's likely to take us until about January of 2028 to reach that number. We've made separate plans to have workforce up to support workforce. There will be approximately 200 long-term operations jobs. And according to a study that was done by one of the large accounting firms, there's about a 6 times job multiplier effect. So for every permanent full-time job, it will support 6 more jobs in the economy. Next slide. We anticipate that after approval of this project, pending approval of this project, and final signature from our tenant, we will begin construction within approximately 6 months. We do already have our well water permit from the Wyoming State Engineer's Office, and as specified per council per year. The total campus build out, that will take us 48 to 60 months, so this is a long-term project, and it will provide sustained multi-year impact to the county. Next slide. These are the tax and economic benefits that I think the commissioners should pay special attention to, because this is where you spend a lot of your time budgeting and deciding how taxpayers' dollars get spent. During construction, there will be about $184 million in local state tax revenue. There will be about $40 million of county and sub-county tax revenue during construction. So that equates to nearly a full year of Uinta County's current tax revenue. After the facility is commissioned, it should generate every year $53 million in state tax revenue, $13 million in county and sub-county tax revenue. That's equal to 26% of your recurring tax revenue. And so that everybody recalls, county tax revenue funds schools, both directly and indirectly, through state programs, fire districts, roads and infrastructure, we heard from earlier, public safety, we heard from earlier, and of course the county government. We believe that this project meets or exceeds the standards for CUP approval, and we're looking at compatibility with neighborhood uses. Again, our closest neighbors are Fountains Ranching Operation and Evanston Silver Eagle Refinery. The nearest residence is 1.2 miles away. There's another residence that's close to that. We talked to both homeowners. I'm sure their support for the project, and work with them to ensure that we continue to meet the neighbors. We are looking at traffic congestion, noise impacts, and we believe that we have fully complied with the China 5 standard that our users evaluate these kinds of projects. Next slide. So with that, one final request would be that if you vote to approve this additional use permit, that you would send a letter to the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality and Industrial Site Commission, advising them of that action and notifying them that our project will be inside an industrial park.
Thanks.
Before we start to take public comment, can I get a show of hands up who all wants to make a public statement at this time? Sorry, I'm short, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you guys do a jury trial with me, you'll hear that. 6. Right? Over here, 7. You take 4 minutes. 5 minutes.
Let's go. Let's try 5.
Okay. So if we could start in the front row, and if you can confine your comments to 5 minutes, and then if we have more time, and you still want to have something, if we can come back up, I think Mr. Rossi has to start.
Red, I don't know if you mentioned, but
To help that time, if somebody has a comment that you were gonna say, maybe come up with a new comment, and let's hear all the new comments, and then we'll go to additions.
And be sure to state your name and your community at the very end.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thank you for hearing me. My name is Alexander Rossi. I'm a resident of Evanston Land, and I am here to talk about the conditional use permit and request that you table that for the concerns that I have. So I have sent you, after the planning and zoning meeting on the 27th, I sent you a list of my concerns. They fall into 3 categories: environmental issues, financial impacts on residents, and legal issues. And then I started talking to some citizens. I put out a petition on Friday, and I gathered 8 pages worth of signatures, and I dropped that off this morning with the Planning and Zoning Commission. There wasn't anybody there, but they left it there, and I alerted Gary well into the fact that I dropped that off. There is a significant amount of concern about the, again, the environmental issues, the financial impacts, and the legal issues. Very important, very interesting to attend that staff meeting this morning. The county attorney went through a number of those and discussed a number of those. And one of the things that, the concerns that, one of the things she brought up was that the CUP, the conditional use permit, once approved, is by case law, can't be changed, or is very hard to be changed, or has some rigidity to it. So my recommendation is that you, because of that and because of these concerns, and despite the county attorney's leaning on the constitutional private landowner, you as the commission have the obligation to protect us as citizens from those issues, environmental issues, financial matters that will impact us. And all we're asking in the petition, these 8 pages of people, is that you review that, come look at that thoroughly, and decide those before you enter into the CUP. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing us. My name is Maria Rossi. I'm Alex's wife, and I live in Uinta County. And I heard a lot of people say that there was plenty of time for public comment and that sort of thing. But I think that people really don't understand the enormity of this project. And I'm not sure that you can talk about the CUP without talking about the man camp. I know that's not on the table for you guys today, but the impact of having all of those people descend upon our little town and our schools and our police department, all of those things are going to be heavily taxed, I believe. We own 2 businesses in Evanston, and I would love to have more traffic in my business, but I also don't want to be inundated. And I really do think that the public has not had enough time. A lot of these meetings are during the day, and people were not able to share their concerns. A lot of people don't even understand how big this is. When I was told about this project a couple of years ago, we've been in Uinta County for 6 years. It sounded like an office building up on the hill, and no one really gave us the breadth of this project. It's huge. It's going to take 5 years, as Prometheus has said, and many, many people in our community. So I hope that you will give the public a little bit more of a chance to really understand what's going on here, and I really appreciate your time and effort. Thank you.
Eric Wyatt, Lyman. Knowing that to speak, I kind of wrote some stuff down, so hopefully that's okay. I just want to stand and ask the county commissioners to support this project. The project represents significant private investment in our community, or our county, at a scale I haven't seen since I moved here 8 years ago. It brings new tax revenue that can help support local services, public safety, and infrastructure without placing additional burdens on existing taxpayers. We heard just a little bit about trying to get more money for our emergency equipment and stuff like that. This directly helps with that without putting that burden on members of the community. I'm also in support for the jobs and workforce development. While much of the attention has been given to the construction jobs, I'm equally interested in the long-term opportunities. Projects like this help create the kind of technology and skill-traded careers that give young people another reason to stay in Wyoming rather than leave. In previous meetings, Prometheus has discussed their connection and working with Western Wyoming and helping develop pipelines for those workforce services. And also local business opportunities. Just this last week over here at Maverick, a son of a local businessman stopped me and said that they had gotten a phone call about their possibility of helping get some work for this project, and he was excited because normally they have, for this kind of work, they have to travel outside of the county, which means that they're away from home, they're away from their family, and he was asking me if it was something that was legit because he just hadn't heard about it. And I told him that it was, that this was something that was coming to the county. And since learning myself about this project a little over 2 years ago, I've looked a lot into data centers, and I've looked into what sets Prometheus apart. From what I've seen from their public information and the meetings that I've attended, and I've been able to attend quite a bit, I think this is an opportunity for Uinta County to show the rest of Wyoming and also the rest of the United States how to properly do a data center. They've really shown a commitment to the community, so they are putting the community first in what they're planning, and I would highly encourage the commission to move forward with supporting and getting this going in Uinta County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parker, I think you might have been asked, but I just want to make sure.
Sure.
Is there anybody in between? Sorry, I'll call you out.
No, you're good. Commissioner Park Jackson, here I also generally supported the project. I expressed that to the zoning. Some of the points have already been made. Just highlight two. One is that, generally in Wyoming, we're pretty good to support the free market. That's something that we do very well, especially compared to some of the other states in the country. There's clearly a market demand. In fact, I had to bring up my smartphone. There's a market demand for this technology and this infrastructure. And I encourage you to recognize that and let the market kind of sort out the details of where this is needed and where it's not needed and what extent it's needed. I actually think this project is a really good example of how the market operates, because we've heard all these horror stories from some of the older technologies and other sites that have caused problems. And that gives opportunities for entrepreneurs like Mr. Warren to come in and unleash American innovation and address those problems through private business without having to have heavy-handed regulation and government. And that brings me to the second point I want to make, which is I think that these types of projects are fully in line with the current policy of the federal government and the Trump administration. I mentioned to the planning and zoning the President Trump's Ratepayer Protection Pledge proclamation that he issued in March. And then just 2 weeks ago, there was another executive order that came out from the White House that said it's titled Promoting Advanced Artificial Intelligence, Innovation, and Security. I just want to read a brief portion of the introduction of that.
It says, the United States continues to lead the world in artificial intelligence because of the enormous talent and innovation of our AI industry, and because we refuse to stifle this innovation with overly burdensome regulation. My administration, this is the president speaking, my administration has unleashed tremendous technological growth and economic investment in AI by slashing the bureaucratic constraints that the prior administration placed on America's AI developers and researchers, and by instead encouraging AI innovation and accelerating responsible AI adoption across the government industry. Advancing AI capabilities make our nation stronger, but also introduce new national security considerations that require coordinated action across executive departments and agencies and components. As these capabilities evolve, my administration will continue to work closely with industry to ensure that the best and most secure technologies deployed rapidly and to confront any health threats to our country. We'll continue to lead the America First cybersecurity effort that enhances both our national security and our global AI dominance. It is the policy of the United States to promote AI innovation and security by working collaboratively with the private sector to modernize government and private sector information systems and harden them against external threats, protecting our ingenuity and intellectual property from exploitation of adversaries, and cultivating America's advanced AI capabilities. I think Uinta County has a great opportunity to play a role in that effort, and I encourage you to support the applicant's request for additional use. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the?
Hello, my name is Dustin Rollins, and I think it's good to, just a committee, sorry, but I think it's good to put a community aspect to it. I got a call from Brady Thornton because cows got out by the neighbor this parcel, and he's like, tomorrow morning I'll get them back in. And I was like, I think it's cool that they are part of this community wanting to bring such a big project to the community, and we need to recognize that even though we are a small community, that big things can still happen and for the benefit of our community. So that's all it is. Thank you.
My name's Joe Hickey. Thanks for the opportunity to bring up a few things. A few years ago, I was out in that area. The last of the Carter Cattle Company ground was there, and they asked me to help find it. So all they ever done was pay taxes on it. Well, there's a flowing oil well out there, and I don't know how close it is to this property, but I would think that we have to be a little careful digging around, because I mean, that oil's right on the surface. The pioneers got it for what greaser wagons. How long it's been there. And I'm not saying I'm against this project. We need more things in Uinta County, but if we just talked about raising our taxes this fall, our sales tax, why do we have to do that if we can get all this tax money from this deal? I've also, I know we got over in Lone Tree, I guess I forgot to tell you where I'm from. We got about 700 acres up in Utah, and 10 times that in Wyoming, and I'll guarantee Utah taxes us way less, 10 times less. So I don't know about this tax deal. I think we need some tax breaks. Also, a few more things. I've always heard these large projects, two things you need. More bars and more jailbirds. And I've always heard there's only one thing that scares a Wyoming cowboy, and that's a Utah with a U-Haul. That's all I got to say.
I'm Brian Lee, president of the office. So, for the county and community, you know, there was some talk about how the boom impacted back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I can tell you, I wouldn't be here a lot. If there were growing that. It's worth that. You know, this brings a lot of revenue to the county. It brings jobs, it brings education opportunities, it brings chances for our young ones to have a job and stay here. You know, as a kid, I wanted to get out of here. But I'm still here. I did my office and came back. You know, there's something special about this area. I think, you know, I've seen a lot of data centers throughout the country. This one seems like they're doing the responsible way. I've seen a lot of good ones where they use smart filters and eat a lot of water. This doesn't do it. And those ones were having very good events. Or having a good cities and all that. So, for a lot of reasons, I think this is a good idea. And I think we should support this one. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I just ask you to support this project. Pretty before I'm sorry. Talked to you many times. Anyway, I represent my family and the land and company. I just want to put a face behind the property. A lot of the citizens here know that we're real, we exist, we've grown up here and on that property. Sitting back there thinking, if you took a pencil and drew a line around our property up there and all the various people we share fence lines with, they're all Uinta County ranchers, residents, and I greatly respect everyone. They're all great stewards of the land. And that's important to me, that's to be a good steward of the land and the livestock that we care for, and to be good neighbors. And so that extends beyond agriculture to our neighbors in town. When this project came about, it's something that we seriously considered. To me, to offer up that land, take it out of agricultural production, and do something else with it, it needs to matter. There needs to be real benefit to the community. And I just want the citizens here to know that that's where our mind is to do good for everyone. And I'm grateful that we live here in the United States of America. I appreciate the comments made by the county attorney about property rights. It's awesome that Dustin Rollins is here. We didn't plan this. He's a new neighbor out there, and he found an opportunity and took advantage of it. And good on him. everybody has that opportunity here in this state, in this country, and I hope we won't forget it. Yes, it is.
Mike Moss, resident of town. I had to tell you that I came into this hearing, mostly neutral, slightly negative about data center because of the things that I understand about data centers and the problem they generate. And surprisingly enough, I am in favor of this project. I've swung completely the other direction because I see a lot of things that are going to absolutely benefit our community. And what if the use was banned? I came in with 9 questions that I had to ask. Every one of them were answered. None of them were negative. And I'm kind of surprised about that. You have a few more questions, but probably after listening to this, I'll have a few more questions. But I just completely changed my position from slightly negative to very, very positive on this project. Thank you.
I think this concludes, oh, there's somebody I can't see the face, but come on up. Sorry, the light is there.
I'm Lynn Byers, and I worked at the Fort Bridger State Historic Site for over 30 years, happily retired. But as such, my job was tourism, and I saw thousands and thousands of people come to our state, come to our historic site. And the people who come to Wyoming, they don't want to see a data center when they drive into our country, into our state. And I think that tourism is an industry that could really be really positive for our state. One of my hardest sells as I worked there was to get the Department of Tourism to advertise us. They would advertise Yellowstone with state dollars and not advertise places like Fort Bridger and South Pass. And I believe we can become more of a destination for tourism, and I think it's important to keep that idea in mind. I actually lived through the boom in the 70s, and I was glad when it was over. The boom didn't really consider the infrastructure for the people who were living around here, and kind of bad things happened. So I'm going to be an advocate for tourism and saying that people come to Wyoming, they leave their money, and then they go, and you don't have to build them schools and hire teachers and have more hospital beds. You don't have to have extra police for them. So I guess I'm supporting tourism. And I have heard negative things about data centers, and some places are banning them. And so I guess I would urge you to maybe look into see why certain places are banning them, people that have had to live next door to them. And I appreciate Mr. Thornock's comments, but from what I've heard, I just wonder if he would take a drink of the wastewater coming from the data center. I've heard that it's not all that good. And plus, this is a drought year. Our pastures are getting our water cut off, so I just want you to consider water too. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on this side?
My name is Heidi Spray. I grew up in Bridge Valley. After I graduated high school, I moved to Utah. I lived in Lehigh for 4 years. Married my husband, and I just want you to consider the reason we moved back to Wyoming was because we wanted to live in a small community. We go back down to Lehigh because his family lives there, and it's unrecognizable. It's not the same place it was when we lived there, and it had kind of a small town feeling even then, but I live in Wyoming and put up with the crappy Wyoming winters. Wish this last winter wasn't that crappy, but most winters are. And I put up with that because of the lack of people. Because I want to be here where it's small, where there's just tourism, where there are people coming to visit, coming through, and I live here for the small town feel. When we start adding things like this, we just open a door to bring a lot of things to turn us into a large city, which is what that community that my husband grew up in down there has turned into, a major large city from a small town he grew up in. And it's been about 30 years, but it's only taken about 30 years to go from a very small town feel to you can't tell the difference between town to town because it is such a huge city. And when we start this kind of stuff, that's where it starts. And so that's just something I'd like to consider is, you know, what kind of feel do we want to keep in Wyoming? Are we here because we want to live in a small town and we want a small community? Or do we just feel like we want to keep adding and let everyone else in from every other town until we turn ourselves into a large city? Thank you.
We're solidly on this side of the room. Yes.
So, hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Tina Johnson. I'm a resident of Uinta County, lived in Southwest Wyoming most of my life. I am just asking you to slow down and reconsider the path we are taking with Prometheus hyperscale. I also got a petition of 250 verified signatures from online. Many of us spend months researching the project. The more we learn, the more questions we have. Yet many citizens feel that they have had limited opportunities to participate in the discussion before major decisions are being considered. The principle of government in America is the consent of the governed. The consent requires informed citizens. It requires transparency. It requires public access to information before decisions are made, not after. And while many say that we have ample opportunity to participate, I want to go back to when he originally did the CUP, where we were as a county, as a state, as a nation, as a planet. January 2020 marked a major shift in corporate America when the levy fee of large investment firm BlackRock increasingly embraced ESG policies, environmental, social, and governance standards that influence corporate decision-making throughout the country. Many citizens watched as DEI programs, stakeholder capital initiatives, and corporate social policies became increasingly common in workplaces and institutions. Many used COVID grant money. Grant money often comes with strings. We saw a lot in the county, the state, the cities, and the schools. As an example, the Department of Health and Home Health workers, they had to incorporate their pronouns on their emails. So the diversity, equity, and inclusion came with all of those grant money. Whether people support those changes or oppose them is not the issue before this board. I do believe that ESG and DEI goes against the standards we've set for us in Wyoming. Those are not Wyoming morals, they're Wyoming values. But Prometheus Hyperscale CEO and chairman of the board is led by Bernard Mooney, the former CEO of BP. And while we want to Trent is from here, the family is from here, and I understand that, and I respect that. And I 100% support private property rights. I'm not questioning that. What I'm saying is, this is a very aggressive ESG company with with the carbon capture. They're very aggressive with that. You can read up on their website. Bernard Mooney actually said, in June of 2020, while we were all going through the COVID and we were living through the peaceful protests that burned down cities, Bernard Mooney, 2020, spoke at the World Economic Forum. I was honored to speak yesterday at the World Economic Forum's The Great Reset announcement, focused on this unique window of opportunity we have to shape the recovery of our world after COVID. That is when ESG came, that is when DEI came. We do not believe in that. The people of Wyoming deserve to know what company this is and what it is going to bring the workforce on as well. When they were asked about security, people were concerned about their children. They were concerned about it's right next to the state park. What was brought up at that time was We will hire 60% women and we're a second choice employer. What does that mean? Number three, second chance employer is people with a criminal record. That's what we gave to the people when they were concerned about our security. So, Trevor Nelson also was a World Economic Forum young leader with Justin Trudeau, Mark Zuckerberg, and many more. The people of Uinta County deserve to know exactly what is being proposed, who is behind it, what agreements have been discussed, what infrastructure commitments may be required, and how this project could affect our community for decades to come. This is a long-term project. These people, and a lot of the people on the board for Prometheus, had extensive energy. There was one person who actually worked for the CIA. This is not a small-town farming company. And the people in the community deserve to know that this is a little bit more. This can have long-term impacts, ESG, DEI. They started a PAC to promote, which that is their right to promote officials to office to further their cause. They work with the Western Wyoming Community College. It's not just this kind of property that we're talking about. So much for your
I'm not 100% against the project. Innovation is always key to American success. I do have a couple of concerns that I have not heard addressed. I know Prometheus said we will build remote power generation. Power generation has a cost to instances where it is fuel, coal, and gas, natural gas. The result of that is, yes, rather than address that they're not tapped into more power line through Rock Mountain. However, it does put a strain on natural gas, the consumption of natural gas, and increase costs to all consumers in this region. You can look at any industrial business there is out there, natural gas demand spike. There's a spike in costs, no matter who you are. Control lines, there swings on demand, whether it's in say Wyoming, whether Texas gets a ice storm, those prices will swing, and with that, there probably will be an increase in cost to the system county consumption of natural gas. And as everybody knows, it was in the state, the drilling count is down, or gas production. It's on, and that's something that was that power that is the size of the center. I think anytime we talk about a large scale project like this, there's nothing that rush. The more time you can take to think it out, to put in all those provisions to receive it, the better it will be, the better it will serve the citizens. State.
Sorry, before you step away, public speaking is not necessarily people's forte. Neither myself or Rich was able to hear your name, so can you just state it again on the record?
Harvey,
Sorry. Thank you. All right, anyone else on this side of the room that would like to address the commission? Anyone, and we should call a fire box, everybody's done a security box? Okay. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Would you like to discuss, before you take a vote, we need to discuss if you are going to consider any of the recommendations from the the Planning and Zoning Commission or other discussions we've had this morning before you take a vote?
I think that's the next conditions.
I do want to just note in response to at least some of the inquiries that the workforce hub that may be proposed, there is a planning and zoning meeting June 24th in the here or Mount View. Is it in Evanston?
It's in Evanston.
So 2 months in a row in Evanston?
Yeah, that's not really the agenda for both things.
Okay, so it'll be June 24th in Evanston in the Commissioners' Chambers for people to have the Planning and Zoning Commission. Dependent upon what the Planning and Zoning Commission determines, the earliest that may come before this board would be on July 21st, and both of those are public hearings. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody knows when those are addressed. Sorry, I don't usually say that, but I'm doing two things at once. So, commissioners, would you like to review all proposed 15 conditions, or is there any that you would like to not review?
I think if you want to go through all of them, not maybe word for word, but just a little synopsis, and then if we've got, if we want to change to those or attitude, we can discuss that at that time. Maybe I should do that, Loretta, clarify which ones came out of the planning and zoning, which ones were requested from that board.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In relation to matters then, the Planning and Zoning Commission did originally have 8 recommended conditions for the conditional use permit in relation to this, and those remain the initial 8. Starting first then, with the first condition, the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission was to provide for a timeframe of commencement of construction within 5 years. And the language that we have discussed in relation to matters, as this board knows, objective provisions are what generally we prefer, so that what one person sees as substantial movement towards construction may be very vastly different than what another person sees as those. And so the progress of this project is in stages, and they have identified stages through their chief executive, it's not a CEO, person in charge of construction. And so we have noted that for that 5-year time frame, which is a specific exception from our land use plan, they will meet one of 3 conditions. One is mass grading, which is 250 cubic yards. The second condition that they may meet within that time frame is coring of the foundation, and that's for all foundations. And finally, that they could build the shell erection for one of the structures or more of the structures. It is a requirement that the permittee will notify the county when they have commenced construction. So those are the objective standards. The next was also recommended by planning and zoning, is that the permittee must meet all state, federal, and local environmental requirements, including compliance with Wyoming industrial siting. That has been amended for language to provide that the permitting must meet applicable Wyoming environmental quality standards, including compliance with Wyoming industrial siting and Chapter 5, Section 1, 2, and 6 of our land use plan, and that they will be required to notify us and provide documentation of each permit that's required by each state and federal agency. So those will be provided to the board. Those are environmental protections that ensure protection of air, water, noise, light, and land, and those were summarized by Mr. Thornock as well. The third condition that was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission was that Uinta County would be the location of receipt of all supplies effectively for this project. That has been modified to note that Uinta County will be the receiving location for all new goods, materials, tools, equipment, supplies, and tangible personal property for the proposed data center development project. For the general citizenry that may not be aware, it is a determination as a point of receipt where the sales tax is imposed. And so that is assuring that sales tax will be imposed and received in Uinta County. The applicant facilitated during the planning and zoning an offer to have monitoring of the well that will be utilized for potable water effectively. That would include, and this was confirmed this morning in our work session, water for drinking water, restroom facilities, potentially cooking, and then it may include beautification of the grounds, flowers, grass, other issues. And it has been noted then that on an annual basis, so an annual on-site water consumption from Prometheus, Wyoming 1 LLC will permit, and they've identified specifically the well permit, and that will be posted annually. Wells don't generally have a running meter, so an annual report that will be included on their website for 10 years from the time of the commissioning of the first data call. So that would generally facilitate the time of construction and approximately 5 years thereafter, and that they will notify the county of the commissioning date for the facility. Within 90 days of the first, this is another condition from planning and zoning, and it provided for essentially testing of the heat signatures coming from the structure, and this was also offered by the committee to clarify that language then within 90 days of the first date of operation of the first data center, the committee will conduct a one-time computational fluid dynamic analysis to demonstrate how the developed project is actually dispersing heat into the local environment, and that will be available on a publicly viewed website for anyone to have access to. The planning and zoning also recommended, mostly I think due to the offer of the applicant related to some maintenance and a bridge on County Road 180. This has been updated to provide that the committee will be responsible for upkeep, maintenance, and repair of the portions of County Road 180 and 181 utilized by the committee during the construction phase of the development of the project, including any subject bridges, culverts, or supporting structures. This will be after a baseline is conducted through a survey that is signed off on by both the committee and the county to identify the condition of those roadways and supporting structures prior to commencement of construction. If there are other industrial users, such as the windmills or Silver Eagle, then the committee will work with those other users and to ensure that those roadways are maintained and they are only responsible for their own personal use, is what we would suggest. So far, do you have any questions? Moving then to some new recommendations that, again, just for reference, I kind of summarized a lot of things very quickly earlier between your research as well as communications. You very independently have tasked my office with a number of things to try to look at and research. So the 9th conditional use permit requirement would be that the committee will use commercially reasonable standards and practices. Mr. Thornock did also discuss this. to have its active work sites and structures during construction and operation comply with the Dark Sky International standards. Dark Sky International is a recognized program that provides for a baseline of protection and preservation of the night sky, both for light pollution as well as for outdoors and animals. They follow 5 general principles. Those are that all light should have a clear purpose, light should be directed only to where it is needed, light should be no brighter than necessary, light should be used only when it is useful, and warm color lights should be used whenever possible. So this condition, if you choose to impose it, would require that the applicant use reasonable standards and practices in order to facilitate the standards that are published by Dark Sky International, except, as noted in the work session, that there would be an exception that would provide that condition does not apply when it's needed for temporary maintenance, repair, or emergency circumstances. There was also discussion in the planning and zoning meeting as well as the public meeting that was conducted by the applicant related to a Wyoming-based preference, and this conditional use provision, if you adopt it, provides for that to be in writing, specifically that the permittee, whenever possible and available, will use commercially reasonable standards to retain and employ Wyoming-based contractors, vendors, and suppliers for the construction, maintenance, and operation of the facility associated with this proposed project. If for whatever reason they're not able to do that, and that could be for a number of reasons. It could be for the lack of availability of employees. It could be for lack of education or training, sufficient certification or education. Then this would require the applicant on an annual basis to report to you the percentage of Wyoming-based workers and contractors, their efforts to retain Wyoming-based contractors and workers. Condition 11 that would be recommended is related to noise pollution, specifically, obviously, that they should, at a very minimum, comply with OSHA standards.
Number 4. Probably best position with Mr. Thornock, but question would be, dust mitigation. Are you planning to use the well water to keep the dust down, or where would the water come from for the dust mitigation?
So there are 2 sources that are being considered. The first one is to buy water from the refinery, what happens to use a lot of water, and the other one is to buy it from the city.
Do you have an estimate of how much water that may take for dust mitigation? Is that in?
Not until we get into construction, but we'll use whatever we need to.
We heard Ms. Ross speaking earlier about MAC water. Would that also be a use or something that you would use for toilet?
For the roads, yes. Obviously, we can't do it on the excavation because it would just get inside.
Are there any further questions on 4?
No.
6 is the metering of the well water reporting mission.
None must be on our website on an annual basis.
My understanding is that their intention is to post it on their website. Yes. And that's on an annual basis. Any further questions on 6? 7 is the heat signature or any heat pollution measurement on once it's up and operational.
No questions here.
The maintenance of 180 and 181 is 8. Any concerns related to that?
I think it's important that they share that cost with the other stock. The others that use the road.
The light pollution provisions in paragraph 9. Any concerns or questions? And the Wyoming first, essentially, conditions in paragraph 10. Any thoughts or concerns about that?
I think it's valuable to utilize what skills and Wyoming crafts that we have. I appreciate you doing it.
Well, I don't know that it would be something that we could legally even impose on this, or maybe language could be changed. I know that a lot of government entities have, in this good faith effort to hire local, they'll have procedures where they'll have like a 5% bid preference or something like that. I don't know if we could impose that on here. I think the language is good, that in good faith that they'll try to work the best to employ.
So there definitely is requirements related to particular government agencies in relation to providing references. The language in this condition were substantially taken from that statute. However, when it gets into a gray area about us having a private company incorporate requirements that are on the both government procedures, they are mandated by this condition, though, to provide for basis or reasons why they weren't able to provide that. And I do feel like if there was comparable bids for offers or employment opportunities, and those were truly comparable opportunities, and they failed to provide for the Wyoming-based employee or contractor, that may be a basis for you to find a material breach of the contract. Does that make sense?
It does. I think the language as it is wrote is sufficient. I just wanted to bring that up so when Prometheus is working with their contractors, they want to take that effort to heart. We appreciate that.
I think as well, just as a commentary, that they certainly, in their website and other issues, have been forthcoming and in support of Wyoming. What about the noise abatement provisions in paragraph 11? Any concerns or comments? The unmitigated impact during construction in paragraph 12. Again, I would note that I would propose there be some limiting language about offsets or prevention of double recovery for any insurance that would associate that solely through EMS services. For the general public that may not be aware, we don't know if that's still here or no. If an ambulance responds to a location that does not transport, then they cannot bill insurance. So that is one concern. But there's also times when rates for insurance companies do not actually compensate at these rates. And so effectively, if there was no insurance payment, there would be an invoice for the entirety of the amount. If, for example, Medicaid, there was an EMS trauma one in 2000 and the Medicaid rate was $800, then this would facilitate our EMS charging them $1,200 to recover the surgical expenses. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I would like maybe if Frankie would be willing. I know in the work session this morning you mentioned maybe the Prometheus would need to have some of their own EMS or own medical staff during construction. Can you be allude to that a little bit, just so the members of the public can hear that from you as to maybe some of your plans with that?
Yes, it's good practice for our general contractors to have some coverage on site during the construction period, and as particularly and considerably right now. We have signed contracts with them, there's been a ton of contract represented, but the idea is that they could come from not only EMS on site, but also security oversight.
And then, as we noted, we have, and as Mr. Quinn noted, we have an entirely volunteer fire department. Effectively, we say entirely, we do have some full-time employees that the fire district pays for, but there is not a set billing pattern for our fire district. However, it does seem just inappropriate to set an amount. And so, if you have different thoughts on how you would like to incorporate it into the CUP, then now we're the time.
I am okay with the language as it is.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I did talk with Barry at lunchtime about the fire,
if they call for a fire truck immediately. He says, we don't bill fire trucks to go out because they're property tax, and that's what pays for the equipment, so.
So in understanding that, Commissioner Sal, this is to effectively negotiate with the applicant the unmitigated impact. So prior, there's been a presentation about where the property tax will be when the property is fully functional and operational. However, at this time, that property rate is at essentially an ag rate, although that will change effective today because of the industrial rezoning. But certainly this is just intended during the time of construction to provide for compensation to the county in light of the fact that it could be higher than what we're recovering from those taxes at this time. So that's kind of where we were trying to resolve. I do believe the applicant is well aware that we don't normally bill for our fire trucks, but it's still amenable to having a review. And then the coroner's expenses were pretty set. The only other issue in the work session, would you like that changed just to the federal rate per mile for the sheriff's office? Or at the rate that they issue charge?
I remember the federal rate per mile, that's what the federal money. Each federal rate is like 0.76. That rate changes.
Different language could just say, we'll follow the IRS.
And then condition 13 just restricts that these applicable provisions only apply once the Prometheus hyperscale 1 reaches a lease agreement with the holding company for the Thornhill Ranch, effectively. Are you okay with that? And the notice requirement, that's effectively incorporating the statutory provisions. Notices to you do go to the clerk for each county, so I'm presuming there's no concern with that. And finally, just placing in a condition the state of statute and case law related to revocation, suspension, or enforcement of these conditions within the CUP. That's also substantially to ensure that the public knows that you will be watching. Maybe you will make sure that these are complied with. Are there any other further concerns or questions?
I don't think this would pertain as much, this question, to the conditions in May. I just want to ask one more clarifying question to the applicant, and that would be, we talked a lot about the data center itself, the operation and water usage and things of that. But what can you tell us about the natural gas fired power plant? We have some concerns with the amount of natural gas that's going to be consumed, possibly raising some rates that way. My concern would be where it's all housed, on the same property, who we buy the gas from, and will there be sales tax on that gas? And then is there any water consumption for cooling for that facility?
Well, I have some specific expertise here because I'm a former oil field trash, as they say. I was in the drilling business previously. And I watched the rigs go down in Wyoming when the shale started in Texas and in the Northeast. So to speak to natural gas, state of Wyoming taxes production. So at the point the gas comes out of the ground, there's a severance tax. This project will obviously increase those severance taxes. It will also have a knock-on impact to companies like the one where I was the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, oilfield services. So it's likely that oilfield service activity will increase in central Wyoming and Wamsutter area, where Williams has approximately 1,500 conventional gas drilling locations. It will also probably increase on the eastern flank of the Jonah Field, which is southeast of Pinedale. It's well known that we have a relationship with Pure West Energy, which is the largest natural gas producer in Wyoming. It is possible that they may have to pick up an additional rig to meet the demand. They currently run a single rig. We are equidistant from the Kern River transmission system, which currently has excess capacity because, again, most of the natural gas production that's come online in the last 10 years is associated gas and shale basins. So there's excess capacity in the pipeline. We can't disclose exactly who we're buying the gas from because the way gas pipes work, there's the owner of the pipeline, there is the owner of the gas, and there is also a shipper of the gas. My wife has worked for one of the largest energy construction companies in the United States for the last 25 years, so this is a nightly dinner conversation for us. The other interstate gas pipeline system that we are close to is Mountain West Pipeline, which is owned by Williams, the same company with large inventory of blue drill conventional gas production locations here in the state. Kind of going on and on, so does that answer your question?
Yep, I think the only other question that I had on that was the water. Is there any significant water usage for cooling that?
No. So the specific generation kit that we're currently considering is a 3.3 megawatt unit that is manufactured in Austria. It's packaged in Milan, Italy, and distributed, owned and operated by a company called Conduit Power. There are plenty of press releases around that relationship with us and Conduit. We also have a relationship that we can't disclose quite yet with a larger power generation company. They are multinational and very large in the United States, and the envision kit for when we get to the larger combined cycle type plant is that we would also use dry core, so there would be no water consumption associated with the gas turbines. The engines that we'll be using initially use something akin to what you would see on a piece of truck. So if you're familiar with that, there's a small consumption, a couple of Yeti cups per day per unit. Fluid that goes into the scrubbing part of the exhaust. That's really good in water consumption.
Just a comment on that, actually. My understanding is obviously revenue ships out on gas and the new ones. So it would be nice to be able to receive some of the severance tax on that, rather than secure that in the states. We should have a substantial amount.
Yes, I think the state exports about 7 times the amount of energy consumed internally. And it's also the governor's preference that we would consume more than gas inside the state of Wyoming and use it to produce economic activity for the citizens of the state.
Thank you.
That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir.
Along those lines, Commissioners, I would also note that the Wyoming Mining Association issued a statement today noting their concerns with the lack of support for data centers, because this isn't this project per se, but that could rejuvenate our coal mining business to have the power plants from there. So the only other thing I have before you take your vote is if you vote and the vote facilitates approval of the conditional use permit, I would ask for you to take another vote to facilitate my office to draft letters of jurisdictional, for the jurisdictional question to both the company, the applicant, as well as the industrial siting to note that you have in fact conducted this formal hearing, that you have found that this is a approved use within an existing industrial park, and so
so that I can issue draft those letters for the chairman to sign for completion of the project.
Thank you. There's no more questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion on this conditional use permit request.
Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve this use.
I'll second that. I know it's been a long, laboring process, but I think, we've been very forthright in coming forward and providing as much information as we can, in reference to this, and, with that, I will second the motion.
Got a motion in a second to approve this conditional use permit request. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.